Not starting shortly like that. Starting. Yeah. Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the continuation of the discussion on the foundational texts of Indian philosophy. This meeting will be recorded and it will be posted on YouTube. So if you have missed any of the previous discussions, you can put it on YouTube. Also, there will be a question and answer segment at the end of the discussions. If you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask. Please use the raise hand feature of Zoom in order to maintain the queue. If you are not speaking, please mute yourselves in order to minimize the disturbances. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Thank you, Prajwal. Om Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine avataravarishthaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. We are continuing our discussion on the Dvaita school of Vedanta. It's called the Madhva or the philosophical school of Vedanta, expounded by Madhvacharya. And of course, Madhvacharya wrote a very large number of very important, very huge dialectical, polemical, philosophical classics, almost 36, 37, very important books. And also there are innumerable other works written by a succession of his great followers, who are also great scholars, mystics, and above all, great devotees. Now, the purpose of this discussion is not to present this conflicting views or anything, but to give an interesting picture of this unique phenomenon which happened during the golden era of Indian philosophy. It begins with almost the 2nd century, 3rd century BC, up to around 16th century AD. From the 2nd and 3rd century BC onwards, a number of schools of philosophy emerged in Buddhist tradition. And of course, before Buddha, a very large number of schools of philosophy already had emerged. Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Purvamimamsa, Uttaramimamsa, and so on. But this unique phenomenon of dialectical warfare, focusing on certain statements from the Vedic scriptures, that happened from around 8th century AD up to around 16th century AD. It began with Shankaracharya. Roughly, maybe more accurately speaking, it began with Gaudapada, who lived around 200 years before Shankaracharya, in the 6th century AD. And then it went through different levels, different stages of evolution. And then came Shankara, then Ramanuja and Madhva, and also their followers. And then there was this very interesting dialectical warfare that took place between Advaitins, the school of Advaita Vedanta, non-dualistic school, and dualistic school of Madhvacharya. And this began maybe from around 13th century AD, and it continued right up to 16th century with the emergence of Madhusudana Saraswati, who wrote the last great dialectical work on Vedantic tradition, Advaita Vedanta, that is Advaita Siddhi. That only marks one particular phase. Of course, even after Madhusudana, this continued, but it took a different turn. A number of books came to be written in different vernaculars of India. So, but the great tradition of classical writings on dialectics and polemical polemical philosophy that almost finished, that came to an end of one phase with the emergence of Madhusudana, who wrote Advaita Siddhi in 16th century. Now we are focusing on a single statement that should be kept in mind. See how a very important but simple statement from one of the innumerable Upanishads, which again is part of the huge corpus of Vedic literature. One statement is taken, and how Madhvacharya and his followers took the liberty to interpret this statement in the light of his system of philosophy. I was talking about the Mahavakya, which involves Tat Tvam Asi. Saya Atma Esha Anima Aidadatmimidam Sarvam Tas Satyam Sa Atma Tat Tvam Asi Shvetaketu. A small statement. And that too, Tat Tvam Asi is only a small little statement. That is the hue, that's the bone which they are fighting for. See, the bone of contention, Tat Tvam Asi. But Tat Tvam Asi has got a great spiritual significance. If you accept Madhvacharya, then you have to admit that everything in this world and everyone in this world is different from everyone else and everything else. That is in complete contrast, in marked contrast with Dvaita. Advaita talks about the fundamental spiritual unity of existence. Madhusudana talks about the fundamental spiritual disunity or variety of existence. But both were great scholars, saints and mystics. And not only that, actually Shankaracharya's contribution to Bhakti school is much more, much greater, it's much more tremendous and it was much more long-lasting, with far greater consequences than even the writings, devotional writings of Madhvacharya, because Madhvacharya could not write anything comparable to at least 68 of the most important devotional poetical classics of Shankaracharya. So even as a devotee you find the great Advaitin made a far greater contribution to devotional literature. So we are continuing our discussion. It's a bit dialectical, but it's worth listening to. So now, when Madhvacharya takes the liberty to interpret these statements according to his own school of philosophy, he takes the liberty to twist and change and modify the meaning of certain roots of Sanskrit word for Prapancha. See, Prapancha according to Madhvacharya means something which is essentially fivefold and which is real, as Prapancha means the world, the phenomenal world, the empirical world, that is the meaning of Prapancha. And according to Advaita, the Prapancha of this world is not absolute non-existence, but not absolute existence either, because it is coming and going, changing all the time. So it is not totally unreal, but it is not absolutely real, because to be called, to be considered to be absolutely real, it has to change the test of time, change, time, space and causation should be beyond any kind of change, the past, present and future. So it is only relatively real. Madhvacharya says it is absolutely real. And it is fivefold. We are coming to that. So I already mentioned earlier that Madhvacharya, he interprets Tat Tvam Asi as Atat Tvam Asi. Grammatically he is not wrong. If you look at the statement, Sa Atma, it's a long vowel. The next word is a different word, Tat Tvam Asi. But if you recite it fast, or you can also put it together, because if you read the old Sanskrit manuscripts that are found in the palm leaf manuscripts, you find they didn't care much for putting full stop, or you won't find any space between two words. A single word will be put together. It may be very long word. It may not be clearly demarcated. So only scholars can really split the words and do, they can splitting the words and then putting together, padacheda, anvaya, anvayartha, all that only scholars can do. So you cannot find fault with the grammatical interpretation, but that's how he changes the meaning. Oh, Shvetaketu, you are not the same as the absolute reality you are seeking. In other words, put in simple language of religion, you say, God is not within you, God is different from you. You are dependent upon God. You are different and distinct from God. You are the physical embodiment and God is different. Advaitins did not say that this physical embodiment of God is God. What Advaitins said is this: within and inside, as the inner indweller of all of us, there is the spark of the divine. And once you look at a person, not in terms of his body, mind and intellect and emotions and feelings, there is within him something that is beyond all this. And that's a divine spark. And that is present in all of us. And that absolute reality, which is beyond body mind complex, that divine spark, which is called Atman, that is the same reality which is the all-pervading divine reality. This is what Advaitins say. But no, what happens is Madhvacharya doesn't take that interpretation. So in order to give a logical interpretation to suit Advaitic meaning and sense, Advaitins use a particular way of interpretation called Lakshyartha, Lakshana. Lakshana means by indication. Don't take the literary meaning, the literary interpretation. Take the implied meaning or implied interpretation. The implication is different from what it literally means. So that's the idea behind. Now Madhvacharya says there is no need to go for any kind of implied meaning or implied interpretation. No need to go for Lakshana. No need to go for Lakshyartha. No need to go for the implied meaning. You take the literary meaning. So he says the word Tat means that God, the Supreme God, the controller, the creator. And Tvam means you, the Jiva. And so that's why Dvaita say Tat. It could mean Tasma, therefore. Instead of Tat, it means Tasma. Therefore, you are not that absolute reality. Now, to drive home this idea of Tat Tvam Asi Mahavakya, I mentioned earlier in the Chandogya Upanishad, there is a long discussion in the 6th chapter, and in the discussion there are many examples given when the disciple Shvetaketu, the student, first heard this instruction. He could not understand it, so he asked for further explanation. And Uddalaka, his father and teacher, again and again repeated with a fresh example each time. So one example I already mentioned earlier, Madhukurdastanda, which actually means an example taking, what do you call this, the example of honeybees, So give for example, let's say there is a pot of honey on your table. How the honey was formed. So these honeybees go to different flowers and plants and gather honey from different flowers and plants. Each honey could be different from the other. But they all, when they all become one entity, which we call honey, their differences vanish, they become one. Now, similarly, in Vedanta, there is an important principle. That is, all of us go back to our own true nature when we enter deep sleep. It's called sushupti. In deep sleep, we become merged with something which is transcendental. And when we wake up, we come back to this physical world, memories, emotions, and feelings. When we are in deep sleep, we are merged with something which is a transcendental reality. So Advaitins will tell you that experience gives you an idea of what it means to be merged in your own true nature. We transcend our physical, emotional, intellectual dimensions, and we become united, identified with something that's beyond all this. That's what happens in deep sleep or sushupti. And when we wake up, we again come back to this world of the five senses, the world of emotions and feelings. So this is given an example by the teacher in the 6th chapter, Uddalaka, when he teaches the nature of being identified with the supreme transcendental Atman. So mantra is there, so those of you are interested, you can read later. We cannot interpret the whole sloka, I have done it on previous occasions. The 9th khanda means a section, in the 6th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad. Yatha Swami madhukruto nististhandi nanatyanam vrikshanam rasan samavakaram ekadam rasam gamayanti etc. Te yatha tatra na vivegam labhanti amushyaham vrikshasya rasaha asmi iti evameva khalu saumya ima sarva praja sadi sambadhya idi na vidu sadi sambadhyamahe idi. This is a point. So, now how do you connect with Advaita? So that little bit of knowledge of Sanskrit grammar is necessary. It's a simple thing. What the Upanishads tell you is this. Just as this honey is collected from various flowers, they lose their individual identity. They don't remember, I have come from that flower, I have come from a rose flower, I have come from another kind of flower or plant. They completely forget where they came from when they become one with honey. Because they have become one. Like that, all beings, all living beings reach a state of identity with their own true nature in deep sleep. The text doesn't tell you that the deep sleep is actually the highest mystical experience. Not at all. There are many wrong interpretations. No. Deep sleep gives you a peep into that higher mystical experience when we completely forget this world, the world of senses, the conflicts and problems, anxieties and worries associated with our sensory experiences in this material world. That's why all people have a natural desire to get good sleep, not dreams, but sleep. And the sleep becomes natural, spontaneous. You just walk into your sleep without your being aware of it. If somebody forces you to go to sleep, that doesn't produce a sense of inner contentment, inner restfulness. anything that is created cannot give us complete restfulness. But we automatically, naturally reach a state that deep sleep may not exist for a very long time. It may be for a short time. Maybe most of the time is half sleep or dreams and things like that. But the real sleep is a state of coming into close proximity with our own true nature, which is totally different from our body-mind complex nature. Where is the proof? The proof is you get complete restfulness in deep sleep. Why? Because we alone exist. When there is something else around us, there is this subject-object interaction. When you are one with yourself, and that yourself is the all-pervading reality, then you feel yourself, you have reached the highest, the river reaching the ocean. When the river reaches the ocean, it doesn't lose its identity. Rather, it actually merges with its real identity. Because the water from the ocean becomes the cloud, and the cloud comes down as rains, and that rains flow as a river to the ocean. So this is how it happens. Why? So when the river reaches the ocean, it is coming back to its own spiritual home. Similarly, when we are one with our own true nature, we are in our own spiritual home. And deep sleep is an indication. It gives you an idea of this experience. This is the subject in these illustrations. That should be kept in mind. So what Uddaraka tells Shvetaketu is, Shvetaketu, his son and student, disciple, look here, when you completely transcend your emotional, intellectual, body, mind, complex identities, and when you identify yourself with your real being, which is within you, and that Atman is your true nature, and that same Atman is Brahman, which is the all-pervading universal existence. When you realize this, you realize your own spiritual home, your own spiritual identity. Now, what Madhvacharya says is something interesting. What he says is, of course, Madhvacharya and also his disciple, not immediately the one who came later, Jayatirtha, who wrote a number of great books, Nyaya Sudha and many other commentaries and tikas on Madhvacharya's works. So, but according to Madhvacharya, the 9 illustrations, those of you who may be interested can refer to this Chandogya Upanishad, 6th chapter. It has got 16 sections, khandas, called khandas. From 8 to 16, in 9 sections, the discussion is given. First, there is an instruction, then the student asks for repetition of the same instruction, and each time the teacher gives a fresh illustration. So, and according to Madhvacharya, these illustrations show not identity and oneness, but the difference and distinction among the different units of honey that have come together to form honey. So you can say honey, bit of honey from a rose plant, bit of honey from another plant, a bit of honey from another flower, let us say, mango flower. All these can have honey, you find. Honey like sweet things. When they all come together, it becomes called madhu, it's called honey. So Madhvacharya says, they retain, they continue their own distinct identities. What Advaitins say is, what they say is, that as madhu, as honey, they become one. They may have come from different sources. But when they all, after all, honeybees don't make any distinction of how the hapless honeybees will be killed and the selfish man, out of his greed, he will go and kill all the honeybees and take the honey and will send to market. So that pot of honey that you are collecting from the honeybees, that net, that doesn't have any distinction in terms of from which plant it came, and they completely forget. So, but Madhvacharya says, actually, this illustration shows the difference between God and Jivas. Instead of identity and oneness, it's only the difference. He says, the juice drops are the flowers of various trees, rivers, etc. And again, all these, they retain their identity. Similarly, the rivers, there is also Nadi Drishtanta is there. The rivers in the ocean, the rivers flow into ocean. Once they reach the ocean, they completely forget. They transcend. They don't forget, they transcend. They go beyond the distinction. I'm Yamuna, I'm Ganga, or I'm some other river. I'm, of course, in the mantra, it's mentioned certain rivers flow to the west, certain rivers flow to the east, like that. When they all merge in the ocean, they transcend the differences. So, this is what Advaitins say, but Madhvacharya says, no, they never become identical. That's the idea behind. Now, there is one mantra, those who are interested, of course, how these dialecticians take liberty with the grammatical interpretations of these words. To give an example, it is interesting to know. Now, here is a mantra, 9th one. Te yatha tatra na vivekam labhande amushyaham vrikshasya rasaha amushyaham vrikshasya rasaha asti tyevamadi evameva khalu imes sarva praja sadi sampadya na vidu sadi sampadhyamahe idi. What it means is, just as the honey units from different plants and flowers forget from where they came from, similarly, all living beings reach a point of experience where they completely transcend their distinctions. That's why the deep sleep is considered to be a wonderful example of our ability to go beyond differences. Everyone wants deep sleep. And we never remember what we are in terms of our socio-cultural or body-mind complex dimension. Those distinctions are completely forgotten and transcended when we are in deep sleep. Then there is another example. That's about river. The river, for those of you who may have books who may would like to read, you can remember. The 10th khanda means the 10th section of the 6th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad. The mantra is this: Imaha somya nadya purasta prachya syandande paschat pradicya ta samudrameva piyanti sa samudra eva bhavati ta yadha yatra na viduhu iyam ahamasmi idi. Evameva khalu somya ima sarva prajasata agamya na viduhu sada agacchamahe idi. Te iha vyakro va simho va vrko va varaho va kido va padango va damsho va mashako va yad bhavanti tada bhavanti saya esha animaidadatmimidam sarvam tas satyam sa atma tat tvam asi. Again, this old Mahavakya, the great statement, is repeated at the end of each illustration. So here is an interesting thing. Animals also go into deep sleep. So example is given here, Vyakro va, Simho va, Vrko va, Varaho va. So lions, tigers, all animals will go to deep sleep. And they come back, they continue to be lions and tigers. Human beings also, they go to deep sleep and they come back, again they are the old human beings. So the point is, in fact, deep sleep is given only as an illustration of the possibility, of the human possibility of somehow transcending our body-mind complex identities. It doesn't mean that deep sleep will make you mystic. It doesn't make you an over Brahman. But it gives you an idea that without going anywhere, within myself, there is a possibility that I can somehow transcend and go beyond all my non-spiritual identities. It means all my nominal identities, physical identities, empirical identities. This is my name, this is my job, this is what I am doing. All these can be transcended. And there the entire existence becomes one. Now, here, of course, Madhvacharya gives an example. I can give it. It's a little interesting. Madhvacharya says, there are two words used here. Those of you know Sanskrit, may see. One word is used, sada agacchamahe. See, sada agamya navidu sada agacchamahe iti. So, after coming back from deep sleep, we don't remember that we are coming from that transcendental state of deep sleep. Again, in the previous statement, sadi sambadhyamahe iti. So you can find sataha and sadi. So actually, sati is locative case called saptami vibhakti, which means in sat, in Brahman, in absolute reality. That means we become merged with the absolute reality, which is our true nature, but we don't remember that, we don't know that. Without our being aware of it, we become one with the supreme transcendental reality. Sati. Sati is actually locative case, it is called Saptami Vibhakti. Sataha is Panchami Vibhakti, it is called ablative case. From, we are coming, Sataha Agacchamahe. I am coming from that existence, from that supreme spiritual experience. They don't remember. Madhvacharya says something funny. What he says, that you have to remember. See, you don't remember, you don't identify the house you are coming from or you are going to with the house. You are inside the house. You and your house are totally different. You are within the house. And you are going into the house, you are coming out of the house. Sagrihat or grihe. It says sati is saptami bhakti, means locative. Sataha, it means panchami bhakti, means ablative. From, so he says, no one can identify himself with his house because he is inside the house. So he and house are totally different things. And again, he is coming from the house. So which means the Tat Tvam Asi Mahavakya is a great statement of difference and distinction, not of unity and oneness or identity. But remember what Advaitins tell you is not that a man living in the house becomes with house itself. So there is a mantra in the Mundaka Upanishad, Brahmaveda Brahmaiva Bhavati. Somebody who knows Brahman will become one with Brahman. What it means is, when you go beyond, when you transcend your own empirical identities, then what is left within us, the real you, the real I, is not this body-mind complex. There is something within all of us, it is not physical, it is not empirical, which is transcendental. That we identify ourselves with. That's what Advaitins say. So this is an important point to remember. So very often, Sataha is Panchami Vibhakti, means ablative case, and sati is saptami vibhakti. In God, that Madhvacharya says, from God, sataha, in God. If you are in God, it doesn't mean you become one with God. But Advaitins did not say it's like somebody staying in a house, identifying himself with the house in which he is staying. Not at all. What Advaitins tell you is, when you transcend your empirical physical identities, then you become one with your transcendental identity. This is and I'm just giving one example. Of course, there is a far funny and interesting example that may interest. I can give an example of how these ideas are being put together. Again, there is a Madhvacharya, of course, in Madhvacharya, and also Jayatirtha, his commentator. He takes up one mantra. You find this in one of the most well-known book called Vishnu Tattva Vinirnayaha. It's a very well-known book by Madhvacharya himself. What I stated earlier, also you find he mentions that, and elsewhere also. There is one verse. It is not from a devotional classic. It is from Gaudapada Karika, Mandukya Karika, which I discussed in 144 classes which are available on YouTube. Gaudapada Karika is a commentary on Mandukya Upanishad. Mandukya Upanishad has got only 12 mantras. It's part of Atharva Veda. Gaudapada Karika has 215 verses which constitute a commentary in verse, a commentary of Mandukya Upanishad. So there is a statement by Gaudapada, Prapancho edi vidyeda nivarteda na sarvasyaha. Nivarteda na sarvasyaha. Maya matram idam sarvam advaidam paramarthadaha. This is Gaudapada. Poor Gaudapada would never have imagined that 600 years later, after his passing away, somebody like Madhvacharya will come and give such a wonderful spin over his great statement, which is a purely Advaitic. So it's an intellectual game, so to speak. So the statement is simple. It comes into Mandukya Karika. Those who are interested, they can see first chapter, 17th verse. Mandukya Karika, Gaudapada Karika, it's a commentary on Mandukya Upanishad. First chapter, 17th verse. The verse is this: Maya Prapancho edi vidyeda nivarteda na sarvasyaha. Maya matram idam sarvam advaidam paramartha. What it means is, Gaudapada's central thesis is, this world as we find really doesn't exist. So when he uses the word really doesn't exist, what he means by exist, what he means is, it doesn't exist the same way without any change in the past, present and future. That's what he says. And I think Einstein also would have agreed with Gaudapada. Even a child studying his basic lessons in physics in a primary school won't agree with you if you tell him, well, this world, this bay, the San Francisco Golden Bridge and all the buildings will exist for all times for billions of years. If you say that, a school student will tell you you are crazy. You can't say that without being certified by a couple of psychiatrists. That's what Advaitins say. That's what Gaudapada said, and that's what later Shankaracharya established. This world that you see around us, this empirical world, which means the buildings, the bridge, the ocean, the mountains, the trees, all these, and our own ourselves, our physical body, etc. All these do not exist as absolute reality. They will come into existence, exist for maybe, if you want, millions of years, but then one day they will disappear. That's what Shankaracharya said. That's what Gaudapada said. So he says, Prapancho edi vidyeda. The world if really is existing, then it will never go away. So if the world really exists means the world really exists as the absolute existence, unchanging, eternal. Then the world can never go away. It will remain there all the time. Maya then, but it actually doesn't exist. Why? Because it will go away maybe after millions of years, billions of years. So Maya matram idam sarvam. All these are Maya. Maya here means relativity. Something that exists only as a relativity. Not absolute reality, only a non-absolute reality. It's called Maya. Advaitam Paramarthaka. Advaita is only supreme truth. That's what Gaudapada says. Now comes Madhvacharya 1200 years, 600 years after Gaudapada. You know what he says? Madhvacharya says, the world, that is the Sanskrit word is Prapancha. So you can listen to Madhvacharya now what he says. He says, the Pancha means fivefold, and Pra means great. So the greatness of this world is that its knowledge as God's creation leads to liberation. Now, of course, there is a twist from the grammatical point. Madhvacharya seeks the help of etymology. Etymology means, so there are many ways of interpreting, understanding a Sanskrit word according to hermeneutics in the school of grammar. Normally, we know every word has got a meaning. Very often, we may be using a word not exactly based on what it means in its original Greek or Latin form. Therefore, there are many words that we use doing full justice to their true root in either Latin or Greek, especially if you use the word is botanical names and medical names, all may have something to do with the original Latin or Greek. But normally, in our normal conversation, when we use a word, the word may very often be slightly different from what its root means. The root meaning is called the etymological meaning. It is called yaugikartham. Then there is a conventional meaning, a meaning that a word acquires in course of its usage over the centuries by people. Because a word can change its meaning. It can be totally different from what it actually means in terms of etymology, in terms of the Greek or Latin root from which the English word has come, a French word has come. So it may be totally conventional meaning, maybe sometimes the opposite of the etymological meaning. There are many examples which I don't have time to go through. So the point is, here Madhvacharya says, Prapancha, which means the world, the empirical phenomenal world in English, he says it comes from the root Panjan. And Pancha means fivefold. So pra is of course here like a upasarga, prefix. So pra can make it prakashena. Pra means great, more comprehensive. If you use the prefix pra before a word, it can alter, change or modify. The prefixes, they play different roles. They can modify, they can change, they can intensify the sense, the meaning. They may even make the word is opposite in meaning. So all these sometimes can be totally opposite. So the 23 prefixes are there. Something called action 27. According to some schools of grammar, they can change, modify, intensify, can completely alter the meaning of the word behind which the prefix is put. Now here, he takes the word pra. pra means great. So his pra means great. What it means is, he says, this five-fold world, what means Panchabheda Siddhanta. So I already mentioned this, his thesis that everything in this world is different from everything else. 5 distinctions. I already mentioned many times earlier. Madhvacharya's Panchabheda Siddhanta. Everything in this world is different from everything else. Every living being, every jiva is different from every other jiva. And every object in this world is different from jiva. And every jiva is different from God. And everything in this world is also different from God. So 5 distinctions. So he says, Prapancha doesn't mean this world. Prapancha means this world of the 5-fold distinctions. Prakrishta Panchavidha Bheda Prapanchaka. Prakrishta Panchavidha Bheda Prapancha. So, Panchavidha Veda means the Panchabheda Siddhanta, means 5-fold differences. So, according to him, the dhatu or Panchan will enable him to interpret Prapancha as something which is essentially 5-fold. And he says, this 5-fold world is 5-fold creation or world, or empirical world is Maya Matramidam Sarvam. That's what it is. It is essentially Maya. And according to Madhvacharya, Maya here means something, the will of God. That's what he says. Maya Matra means the will of God. Maya is the power of God, God's ability to create this world. And it is nothing but the power of God, the will of God to create this world. And again, he says, Maya matramidam dvaidam, advaidam paramartha. What it means is, this 5-fold prapancha, the prapancha which is 5-fold, which is made of 5-fold differences, it is protected by God. Because Maya matram, matram it means protected. So, of course, there is a derived from the root man. Man is actually means to train, to protect. So, he says the word Maya matram. So, the world is created by the power of God and sustained and protected by the power of God. And is the absolute reality as much as God himself. Only point is, this world doesn't have freedom. It is paratantra, it is dependent upon God, but it is as real as God himself. So this 5-fold difference which constitutes this world is the meaning of Maya Matram. So it is not an illusion. It is not something relative. It is absolutely real. Why? Because it is made by a God who is absolutely real. So what an absolutely real God makes cannot be unreal. This is the interpretation of Madhvacharya. So you can give an example of this. And then again, Prapancho yadi vidyeda nivarteda nana sarvasaka maya matramidam dvaidam advaidam paramartha. This is the statement in Gaudapada. So how does he interpret Advaita? He says, Advaita means it is supreme one without a second. Everyone and everything else is not supreme, not independent, but dependent upon God. So that is the reality of the world. So the world is real. It is created by a God who is real. So there is no reason to say that this world is a supreme position. It is absolutely real. Now here again you have to remember, we will never be able to fully understand the implication without putting Advaita somewhere. In Advaita Vedanta I mentioned earlier, I mentioned in almost every class, the reality is analyzed from 3 perspectives. The absolute, the transcendental, the eternal reality which never comes into existence because it always exists. It never ceases to exist because it always exists. Below that, the Vyavaharika. Paramarthika is the absolute, Vyavahara is the empirical, everyday, common sense reality. The trees and mountains and valleys are our physical body. The bus we travel, the car we drive, everything is Vyavaharika. Not absolutely unreal because we are experiencing it, but not absolutely real because we cannot experience it all the time. It always changes. So it is only Vyavaharika. The third reality is Pratibhasika, conceptual entities. Now, this gradation of reality is not acceptable to the followers of Dvaita philosophy. This is important. Madhvacharya divides reality into two. That is, the one absolute reality which is Swatantra, which means independent and also real. The other, everything else is Paratantra, dependent, not independent, but also real. This is everything is Satta. So, but then God alone is Swatantra. This is his view. Now, in this statement, so you can, of course, this is only, all this you find in Vishnu Tattwamayanandaji, very famous book. The book talks about Vishnu as Sarvottama, as Purushottama, as the supreme one personal reality. Here, Madhvacharya, again, so very interesting, he says, Prapancho yadi vidyeda nivarteda na sarvaseka. Nivarteda na sarvaseka. Sarvaseka. Maya matramidam dvedam advedam paramarthaka. So vidyeda is a word is in Gaudapada Karika. So he takes up that. He says, videhe sattarthagatyam angikritya bhavet iti vyakhyanam. So, Prapancho edi vidyeda. If the world is existing, yedi vidya means the world is existing. That's the meaning. So Madhvacharya says the word existing is used by Gaudapada. What it means? It is existing. An if clause cannot be used unless there is a possibility of some kind of existence. You don't use the word if clause with regard to something which we cannot even think of. After all, if you can walk, you can walk for 2 miles. But you don't use the word if you can fly on your head, if you can fly on your feet. We don't use the word because the possibility is totally non-existent. So Madhvacharya says, Prapancho edi vidyeda. So he says, videhe sattarthagatum. The word vidhadu is used. Means if it exists, or if you come to know of it as existing, then it has got sattarthagatum. That means it is a satta. It is something real. So sattarthagatum angikritya. He says, that means Gaudapada agrees the world is existing. So he puts his own meaning into poor Gaudapada's mouth, who had passed away 600 years before he was born. Iti bhave iti vyakhyanam. So he said this way of interpreting. So anyway, so very, very, it is very, absolutely you have to remember, with all that you have to remember Madhvacharya was a very, very great saint. Of course, there are many, many other ideas we will discuss later. I think we will have interaction. Most welcome. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
I'm looking for hands up, and I don't see any. I don't see questions on YouTube.
Yeah.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, Sriram, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not seeing
Sriram.
it here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
You mentioned that Prapancha is Sat in Dvaita according to Madhvacharya.
Yeah.
So do they also say the nature of Atma is Sat Chit Ananda?
No,
What
no.
do you mean by Chit and Ananda?
Madhvacharya won't agree with Advaiti's interpretation of Satchidananda. Satchidananda is, according to Advaitins, it is the Swarupa. Again, that Atman or Brahman is beyond definition. But as far as we can go, we can say that Atman is absolute knowledge, bliss and consciousness. So that interpretation is not acceptable to Madhvacharya. According to Madhvacharya, all these are different attributes of God. Attributes. You can find Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Baladeva, the tradition also accepts. All these qualities are attributes of the idea of God. According to Krishna, Chaitanya's school, Krishna, and according to Madhva, Vishnu. That's the only difference. So whatever you speak in terms of defining Brahman, or words used to describe the absolute reality in the Upanishadic Advaitic literature, Madhvacharya will tell you that these are all different properties, attributes and characteristics, glories of the Lord. That's the idea behind it.
So Satchidananda is not a reference from the Upanishads?
Satchidananda is the Upanishad, but the way it is interpreted as knowledge, consciousness, and absolute and bliss, absolute bliss, absolute consciousness, absolute knowledge. That's the interpretation of Dvaita. Satchidananda is Surupa Lakshana, but that is the Advaitin's view of Satchidananda as constituting our attempt to define what is beyond definition. Madhvacharya doesn't agree with that. He will say absolute knowledge, absolute bliss, absolute consciousness. They are only attributes of Vishnu. Okay? That's the idea. That's the idea. Difference. Great difference.
Does Dvaita and Advaita also and Vishishtadvaita also have Prakarana Granthas like Tattwamaya which set out their terminology?
Oh yeah, actually you don't have such a graded list of books in these traditions. But in the tradition there are books that are to be studied first, and after studying the elementary books only you take up the Bhashya's commentaries. Ramanuja's commentary on Brahma Sutra, Shivashya, his commentary on Gita, and also his innumerable other books, they are studied only after studying some elementary lessons. Okay. There are books written by Vedanta Desika and others in Ramanuja system. In Madhva system also there are even the philosophical literature of Madhvacharya system is much more extensive than Ramanuja system. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sri Ram. I'm grateful you jumped in. I see the hands now on this interface. David, you're next on this list, and you also had a question from last week. So please proceed.
Hello, Swami.
Yes.
I question a different one from last week.
Please, yeah.
Now I know we're studying Hinduism, but I know Nagarjuna is what you brought up Gaudapada, so that reminded me of something Nagarjuna. Is it okay if I ask a question about Nagarjuna's?
Oh, Nagarjuna.
philosophy?
Yeah, please, yeah.
So I remember hearing a lecture. I don't know if you met Wade Daisy. He was unusual. He was American who was a professor of Shankara and Shankya in Santa Barbara. But he was also a disciple of Swami Seshananda. He once said that Nagarjuna proved that Buddha was I forget what he called him. He was, but he said that he proved philosophically that Buddha does not exist. Buddha does not exist. Buddha does not both exist and not exist. And Buddha doesn't neither exist nor not exist.
Oh, yeah, okay.
How that relates to Vedanta, that sort of fourfold.
Actually what you're talking about is the philosophy of Jaina religion. It's called Syadvada. Jaina philosophy, it could be so, it could be the other way, it could be both way, it could be totally different from both. So you find if you go to, it's called Syadvada. Nagarjuna's well-known book is called Moola Madhyama Shastram or Madhyamika Karika. Madhyamika Karika is the Bible of Shunyavada. the doctrine of nothingness, let's call it. And also it has got an extensive commentary by Chandrakirti. This is the standard education in Buddhist idealism. Buddhist idealism is divided into two categories. One is Vijnanavada and Shunyavada. So, Nagarjuna is the greatest name in Shunyavada tradition. So, he defines Shunya, and finally he says, you cannot even call Shunya by the name Shunya. If you use the word Shunya to call Shunya, then it will not be Shunya. So he says Shunya is something that is beyond definition. So Nagarjuna, he is a great dialectician. He comes very close to Advaita in his attempt to define or explain Shunya. But the point is, he finally said that the Shunya is nothingness. So everything emerges from nothingness. But there are clear statements in the Shunyavada literature which will tell you that Nagarjuna did not mean, when he used the word Shunya, he did not mean what we understand by the English word nothingness. This is a very important point, remember. What he said, what he implied by the word Shunya is not what we normally understand by the word nothingness in Oxford Dictionary, Chambers Dictionary, Webster Dictionary, wherever you look. That is a great problem in translation. So, and I think Rhys Davids and some other writers, even including some American writers, Americans who translated Sutta Bedaka and the Dhammapada and all that into English, they have tried to clarify this point. But somehow the translation of the word Shunya into nothingness very often gets trapped because of what nothingness means in English dictionary. That's the problem. What he meant was, this world it is something which cannot be called an absolute reality. That's idea, that sense is behind Anatavada. When I take up Buddhism at some point of time later, after Madhvacharya, I will take up other schools of Vedanta, and then I will come to Buddhism. Okay, so we will have extensive. I think we'll have. Yeah.
Oh, in this class, oh, good. Okay, that will be. So when Buddha said, somebody asked him, "Are you a god?" He said, "No." "Are you a man?" He said, "No." "Well, what are you?" He said, "I'm awake." Could that be?
No, that is true. That is real. Buddha's dialogues contain many such ideas. I'm awareness. I am something that can be called man or woman or any of the biological or any other entities. Buddha keeps speaking, and finally you find him coming very close to the highest Advaitic idealism. But when you talk about Advaita, you have to remember, this is a very important point to remember. Many modern writers are not aware of this, or they don't want to take up this point. In Advaitic literature, there are certain phases. First, the Advaitic idea that you find in books like Rigveda Samhita, even our own statement in the old temple Webster Street, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti, that is an Advaitic statement. Actually, Indram Mitram Varanam Aktirahu Adho Divyasa Suparno Gurutman Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti Akdim Yamamadri Shwanamahu, first mandala. That is the first non-statement of Advaitic idea. But Advaita had not become a philosophy during Rigvedic times. Advaitic idea, Advaitic concept in spiritual experience, as a spiritual experience, was very much there. Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti. So, for diversity of diverse interpretations, different ways of reading, understanding, approaching, and the fact that everything, the one supreme reality, that is pure Advaita. Advaita, you see, Ekameva Advitiyam, you say, Ekam, one, there is nothing second. So, the diversity may, the experience of diversity may prompt us to think that there is more than one supreme reality. To deny the possibility, Advitiyam, one without a second, Ekameva. But that philosophical doctrine was later expounded in books like Gaudavada's Kariga, which we discussed just now. You can find in Adhyatma Ramayana, Yoga Vasishtha. But Yoga Vasishtha, the problem is, it becomes just a concept, a high ideal which floats in the sky. When you come to Shankaracharya, what he did, he gave it a metaphysical system, he made it a metaphysical system, epistemology, a logic, and then he gave it practical application, a mechanism also. How do we really understand Advaita? For that, we have to take up a spiritual journey. Fundamental disciplines like, Nitya, Nitya, Vastu, Vega, etc. It's called Sadhana Sadhushtaya. 4 disciplines. First, we should have an idea of what is real, what is absolutely real, what is unreal. Then we must disregard the unreal and we should take up the real. Then we must try to attain self-restraint, discipline, purity of mind and so on. And also we should have a strong urge for liberation. When we acquire all these qualities, then we will be able to understand Advaita at least intellectually. So all this you can find the entire paraphernalia required for a philosophical system, Shankara approach. So, and after Shankara, it took a different turn. It became a dialectical system, which prompted responses from non-Advaitic schools of philosophers like Ramanuja, Madhva and others. So very often, in modern times, we don't know where to begin. It's okay, we can read whatever we want to read, but a basic framework we should have in our mind. This, for example, what Advaita means. Shankaracharya, who talked about Advaita, he also said about how we must do our daily work. See, just imagine. So, you are talking to a child that one day you can become an Einstein, but then next day you take the child to a kindergarten and ask him, you do very well in your kindergarten. Then after some years you may go to primary school. Then you may go to college or university. Eventually maybe after 50 years you may become an Einstein. Today the problem is every child thinks he's an Einstein in Vedanta. That's a problem. So very often, many and people are highly drawn, attracted to this strange idea, I can go away from this world, I can forget this world. People are captivated by this idea. That's not what Shankaracharya actually meant. So it's okay, you should become an Einstein, but go to kindergarten right now and start to do well in the kindergarten. So that's the greatness of Shankaracharya. That's the contribution of Shankaracharya. Same combo. Excuse me. Yeah.
I had one more question. When Buddha says I'm awake, is that the same as the shunya of Nagarjuna?
No. Actually, Buddha, when Buddha said that everything in this world is impermanent, that is actually closer to Shunyavada. Because when Nagarjuna talks about Shunya, what he's implying is nothing in this world is permanent. That's what he implies. When Buddha talks about I am awareness, what he's talking about, what he called mindfulness. The mindfulness. Mindfulness was something that Buddha himself practiced. See, when he sat there for meditation, he took a strong decision. Ihasane, sushyudame, shariram, etc. This strong will. I will not get up from this seat till I get the ultimate spiritual enlightenment. Then 543 images from his own previous life cycles flashed through his mind. It's called the rebirth stories, Jataka tales. All this emerged in his mind. He became aware of those things. then he disowned, he detached himself from all that. And as a result of this, he became Buddha. That's why it is said in some scriptures that when you sincerely take up your spiritual journey to the highest transcendental experience, images, memories, and thought currents from your previous activities, from your previous life cycles may emerge in your mind. You should not be drawn by that. You should not be swept away by that. You should be able to practice mindfulness. You become aware of it, but then you detach yourself from it. Then you conquer it. Without awareness, you cannot get freedom from it. But if you are bound, then also you cannot get freedom. So you should be aware of it, then disown, detach yourself from it. Then it will be no more problem for you. So Buddha practiced that, which he actually made in Digha Nikaya and Khuddaka Nikaya. Digha Nikaya you find, Digha Nikaya and there is another Majjhima Nikaya. So in Digha Nikaya, I think Mahasadhyupattana Sutta, and Majjhima Nikaya, the Sadhyupattana Sutta, which is actually Buddha's discourse on mindfulness, which he himself had practiced when he sat for meditation. In our spiritual life, we find when we start this inward journey, many of our own previous memories and experiences may emerge in the mind. We should not be bound, we should not be overwhelmed by that. We be aware of it, but detach yourself from it. That's the real meaning of be aware of, awareness. The Prajnanam Brahma in the Aitareya Upanishad, this awareness itself is Brahman. In the it is in Rigveda tradition, Prajnanam Brahma, the Aitareya Upanishad. It's one of the Mahavakyas. Supreme awareness without a cognitive object. You may be, I am aware of this, aware of that, but remove this from it. You have pure awareness without anything, any object that you are aware of, but you have pure awareness. That is the implication of Buddha's statement. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Swami.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, David. Shay, I see your hand.
Yeah.
Hello, Swami. Thank
Yeah.
you for another wonderful lecture.
Yeah, thank you.
My question is about this Tat Tvam Asi mantra, and also there's this other mantra, Soham. Like
Yeah.
In the Upanishad, there is this mantra, Purushaha Soham.
Yeah.
It means there's Tat Tvam Asi, my understanding means you are that, and Purushaha Soham is I am that. I'm wondering, do those mantras have a similar meaning, or is it a slightly different meaning? And also, how would Madhvacharya interpret this Purushaha Soham?
Yeah. Actually, Madhvacharya interpreted, I am his. So, I am his. That means I am dependent upon him. The Jiva is dependent upon Brahman or Vishnu, God. So, Madhva system is a devotion system. So, essentially, he thinks that a devotee can get spiritual enlightenment only by the grace of God, and knowledge, according to him, is nothing but the knowledge that we are all dependent upon God, that we are distinct from God, and we are not independent. God alone is independent. God alone is Swatantra. This understanding is spiritual knowledge, and this leads to kripa or grace, according to Madhvacharya. So he makes that point very, very clear in the statement. Jadirorthi panchashabdat pratyeha Tatascha panchavidasya cha prakrishthatva prapanchaka prakrishthatvam mokshanga jnanatvad. So he says the understanding that this world is panchavidha. That means it constitutes five-fold differences, five-fold distinctions. And again, and this, and then it is prakrishta, it is creation of Creator God, and this understanding also is the means for moksha, mokshanga jnanatvad. So, this understanding of the essential nature of the world as being constituted by five differences, and understanding that the world and all of us are dependent upon God, we are not independent, God alone is the only Swatantra or independent reality. This understanding is the means, anga means a means, a part of it is the means for moksha. This is Madhvacharya's view. So in other words, there are many kind of complete admission of our own inability, our own dependence upon God. This alone can make us true devotees, and this alone can lead us to spiritual liberation. So just the opposite of Shankaracharya. Remember, it's essentially a devotional system. And I tell you something interesting that may be very interesting to our friends here. You know, you find in many of the great Advaita institutions, including Shinkari, Shankaracharya, other places, hundreds of people come together and read the greatest devotional classic, Bhagavata Purana. 101 scholars will come together and read Bhagavata Purana. And Bhagavata Purana is the greatest work, devotional work of Hindu Vedantic tradition. So, in actual practice, Advaita and Dvaita are not fighting with each other. All of them will come and read this matter. So, the only purpose of describing these interesting thought systems right now is I was requested by some very wonderful academics in the US and also by some senior Swamis back in India to give a kind of scriptural background of many of these ideas. We cannot really interpret every single scripture from beginning to end, but some of the selected passages from most of the foundational texts. That's the purpose of this discussion. It's a very wonderful intellectual discussion. I mentioned many times earlier. It will be wonderful even anyone can later on. We can have programs in the US, listen discussing. I'm not the right person to do that. There we can discuss Aristotle, we can discuss Aquinas, Augustine. People may consider Aquinas or Augustine may be totally irrelevant, obsolete. Maybe, there may be, but to preserve the ancient tradition, the vast reservoir of intellectual work done by great masters of ancient times, that's part of our attempt, it should be part of our attempt to preserve some of the intellectual traditions of Western civilization. I'm talking about Western civilization, the Greco-Roman tradition. But I don't think it's ever possible in a big way on this side of the great pond, So, because we are so much given to utilitarian, scientific, technological things that sometimes we overlook the importance, so we ignore the importance of these, essentially the works of the great masters, the philosophers, thinkers, theologians of ancient times. Many of those ideas may not be very, very, very palatable, very enjoyable, even if you talk about the radical sinfulness of Augustine. I don't think there will be many people will be impressed. But still, studying those books and ideas, we intellectually will keep those traditions should be preserved, even if they are not the right ideas for this 21st century, Okay, that's all. Okay. So now,
Shay,
yes, yeah.
Shay, do you have a possible follow-up? I saw
Yeah.
that
Please.
that.
Yeah.
There are 13 people in this Zoom, and there's more on YouTube. And you, Swami, are helping preserve those teachings. And maybe there's not hundreds or thousands, but there are people who are here in America or in the Bay Area, which is so utilitarian, but that do want to preserve these. Or
Absolutely. It's a great promise. It's a great promising situation. People are listening and ask questions. And I do have a plan in future to take up different schools of Buddhism, both Hinayana system based on the Pali canon and also the 4 schools of Buddhism, Sautrantika, Vaibhashika, Vijnanavada and Shunyavada. It's a wonderful thing. And I appreciate your question, Shay, because you make a great contribution by asking these questions and giving me an opportunity to give more elaborate explanations. Okay, thank you. So, Bobby, you don't have anything? Then we'll conclude. You have anything, please?
Well, I am concerned that Sri Ram's hand went back up, and I think that he may wish to participate, or that may be residual from earlier.
Oh yeah, I just had a quick comment.
Okay.
You mentioned at the end of the Shunya question of David that Shunya refers to the fact that the world is unreal.
Yeah.
So that would be consistent with Dvaita.
That's true. That's true. Actually, you'll find in the Madhyamika Karika of Nagarjuna, there are many expressions which later Gaudapada used in Gaudapada Karika. The word Advaitam is used by Nagarjuna. Maya is used by Nagarjuna. So it seems that instead of coming straight to Advaita, this one supreme realities which beyond description and verbalizations, asserting that, instead of asserting that idea, Nagarjuna emphasized the idea of the impermanence and the transient nature, the changeability of all that exists that you find in front of you. So he used the word Shunya in that sense. Okay, so the vocabulary of Nagarjuna and the vocabulary of Gaudapada in many places are almost similar. Even I told you Advaitam, even when describing Shunya, I used the word Advaitam, but without a second. Advaitam, but so he said, there is a statement, of course, Shunya is the Paramartha Satya, Nagarjuna uses. And instead of Vyavaharika Satya, I mean, the empirical reality, Nagarjuna uses another term. But the idea of looking at reality from 2 perspectives, the absolute, which is Shunya, and the relative, Sanchita, relative, I mean the relative, that you find in Nagarjuna also, you find. Okay. When we take up Nagarjuna system, we'll explain it more elaborately. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So now I have some very important announcements. Now we have a very important event. So Sriram, you can attend this program. Bobby Coleman, Mark, all our devotees will attend this program. Guru Purnima celebration on Sunday, July the 21st. So please remember, we have an important celebration, Guru Purnima, Sunday, July the 21st. Sunday, 21st. New Temple, 2323 Velago Street, San Francisco, 10 a.m. So we cordially invite you to the new temple on Velago Street on Sunday, July 21st at 10 a.m. as we celebrate Guru Purnima, the day dedicated and devoted to honoring the spiritual teacher. The program will include worship, puja, chanting, meditation, devotional music, arati, talk on the role of Guru ideal in human civilization by Swami Tattwamayanandaji, flower offerings by devotees, and a prasad luncheon. Child care will be provided. So we will continue our Indian philosophy class during the summer recess. So we will not stop this class. The Indian philosophy class at 6 p.m. on Sundays evenings will continue. And then we have Labor Day retreat Saturday to Monday. That means Saturday the 31st August, 1st September, Sunday, and Monday the 2nd September. So remember, 31st August to September 2nd, we have Labor Day retreat on Vedanta retreat, Ulima, Marin County. The topic for discussion is spiritual journey. So remember, we will discuss this subject in the light of some important episodes from Srimad Bhagavata Purana, which is a devotional classic. Sunday and Saturday, that is 31st August and 1st September, morning session 10 to 11:30 a.m., afternoon session 3 to 4:30 p.m. Monday only one session 10 to 11:30 a.m. Each session will consist of a talk and a Q&A. So you can see our website on our website homepage, and also you can do RSVP. In the website you can find a link to RSVP. Okay, if you do RSVP, it will be helpful for us to make preparations. Or the lunch and snacks will be provided in Olima retreat, about 30 miles from San Francisco. Okay, thank you.
Is there a class next Sunday on 21st?
Excuse me, yeah, this class, our class will continue 2 hours. Okay?
Even next Sunday?
Next Sunday, yeah. We'll continue.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Recording stopped.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you. Namaskar. Namaskar. Thank you.